The Tonight Show interview was supposed to celebrate Gwen Stefani's latest music and her happiness with Blake Shelton. She'd prepared to discuss their relationship with her characteristic blend of vulnerability and strength. But when Jimmy asked about learning to love again after divorce, something deeper stirred beneath her confident exterior. Gwen sat in the blue chair, unconsciously playing with her wedding ring from Blake. She'd become skilled at sharing just enough personal details to satisfy curiosity without revealing true pain. Tonight felt different, like the weight of carrying shame about deserving love was finally too heavy to bear alone. "You know, Jimmy," she began, her voice carrying that familiar tremor it got when emotions were close to the surface. "Everyone talks about finding love again, like it's this beautiful second chance. But no one mentions how terrifying it is when you think you're broken." Jimmy leaned forward, immediately recognizing the shift from promotional banter to something much more profound. His experience with countless interviews had taught him when someone was preparing to share their deepest truths. "What made you feel broken?" he asked gently. Gwen took a shaky breath, looking down at her hands before meeting his eyes. "After my divorce from Gavin," she said quietly, "I genuinely believed I was damaged goods. That any man who got to know the real me would eventually realize his mistake." The studio audience grew completely silent, sensing they were about to witness something raw and honest. The cameras stayed focused on her face as she gathered the courage to continue. "I spent 3 years convinced I wasn't worthy of real love anymore. When Blake first told me he loved me," Gwen continued, her voice growing steadier with the confession, "my immediate thought wasn't joy or happiness. It was panic, because I thought he'd figure out I wasn't worth loving." Jimmy's expression softened with understanding as he listened. "How did that fear affect your relationship with Blake?" he asked with genuine concern. "I sabotaged it constantly," she admitted, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "Every time he was sweet to me, I'd find something to fight about. I was so convinced he'd leave eventually that I kept trying to prove myself right." She paused, the weight of admitting this self-destructive pattern clearly affecting her. "I'd analyze every text message, every tone of voice, looking for signs that he was getting tired of me. I was exhausting to love, and I knew it. The worst part was that I kept comparing myself to his ex-wife, to my ex-husband's affairs," Gwen continued, her voice growing quieter. "I'd think Blake is used to someone younger, someone who hasn't been betrayed, someone whole." The camera caught the pain in her expression as she relived those dark thoughts. "I remember one night, about 6 months into our relationship, Blake found me crying in the bathroom at 2 a.m. Jimmy moved from behind his desk to sit closer to her, his gesture showing support. "What were you crying about?" he asked gently. "I was convinced he was going to leave me for someone better," Gwen explained, wiping her eyes. "Someone who didn't come with 3 kids, a messy divorce, and all this emotional baggage. Blake sat on that bathroom floor with me for 3 hours," she continued through tears. "He didn't try to fix me or tell me I was being ridiculous. He just held me and let me feel broken." The studio was completely silent, except for the soft sounds of people in the audience getting emotional. "What did he say to you that night?" Jimmy asked. "He said, 'Gwen, I don't want someone perfect. I want you, with all your beautiful broken pieces,'" she replied, her voice cracking with emotion. "He told me that my scars didn't make me less lovable, they made me real. But I still couldn't believe him," she continued, fresh tears forming. "I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for him to realize what everyone else who'd hurt me had realized, that I wasn't enough." Jimmy handed her a tissue from his desk. "When did that start to change?" he asked. "Therapy," Gwen said honestly. "Blake insisted we go to couples counseling, not because we were in trouble, but because I was so terrified all the time. The therapist made me realize I was punishing Blake for Gavin's mistakes," she continued, her voice growing stronger. "I was making him pay for betrayals he'd never committed. I had to learn the difference between being vulnerable and being a victim," she added, looking directly at Jimmy. "Vulnerability is sharing your fears with someone you trust. Being a victim is letting those fears control your life." Jimmy reached over and squeezed her hand. "How did you start to believe you deserved love?" he asked. Slowly, Gwen replied with a small smile through her tears. "Blake would do these tiny things. Leave notes in my coffee cup, text me good morning every day, include my kids in everything. One day I realized he'd been proving his love to me for over a year, and I was still acting like he was about to disappear," she continued. "That's when I knew the problem wasn't Blake, it was me not believing I was worth staying for. The breakthrough came when my youngest son told me he'd never seen me this happy," she said, her voice full of emotion. "Children see truth, you know," he said. "Mommy, you smile different now." Jimmy turned to address the camera. What Gwen is sharing is incredibly brave. Learning to accept love after betrayal is one of the hardest things anyone can do. The thing is, Gwen added, finding her voice as someone who'd learned to love herself, "I thought my divorce made me unlovable, but it actually made me more appreciative of real love when I found it." She looked directly into the camera. If you're watching this and you're afraid to love again because someone broke you, please know that broken doesn't mean worthless. Sometimes the cracks are where the light gets in. And if you're loving someone who's been hurt before, she continued with fierce determination, be patient. Trust takes time to rebuild, but it's worth it when you're building something real. Jimmy wiped his own eyes, clearly moved by her honesty. "How has this journey changed you as a person?" he asked. "I'm braver now," Gwen said firmly. "Not because I'm not afraid anymore, but because I've learned that love is worth the risk of being hurt again. I also learned that I can't love someone else fully until I love myself," she continued. "Blake didn't save me, he loved me while I saved myself." Jimmy stood up and helped Gwen to her feet. "Gwen Stefani, everyone," he announced. "Someone who learned that being broken doesn't disqualify you from being loved." The audience rose in thunderous applause, but this was different from typical entertainment applause. This was recognition of courage, of healing, of someone choosing vulnerability over self-protection. As the show ended, Jimmy kept his arm around Gwen's shoulders. "Thank you for sharing something so personal," he whispered. "You just gave a lot of people permission to believe they're worthy of love." 4 months later, Gwen partnered with divorce recovery organizations to create support groups for people struggling to love again after betrayal. Her program helped hundreds learn to trust their hearts again. The interview segment went viral across social media platforms, with relationship therapists praising her for addressing the long-term effects of infidelity on future relationships. Mental health professionals highlighted her journey as healthy relationship recovery. Gwen received thousands of messages from divorced individuals who said her story gave them hope that love was possible again. Several couples credited her honesty with helping them navigate trust issues in their own relationships. Blake publicly supported her decision to share their struggle, appearing on relationship podcasts to discuss loving someone who'd been deeply hurt. Their openness helped normalize the challenges of blended families and second marriages. Jimmy continued featuring relationship experts on his show, using Gwen's story as a starting point for conversations about healing from betrayal. "That interview showed me what real courage looks like," he told her at their vow renewal ceremony. Today, Gwen speaks openly about learning to receive love during interviews and through her music. Her message resonates with audiences who recognize their own fears in her journey. The woman who once cried on bathroom floors convinced she was unlovable became an advocate for believing in second chances. Sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about perfect people, but about broken people learning to be whole together. Her bathroom breakdown that night became the foundation for the strongest relationship of her life. Because learning to accept love after betrayal isn't just about trusting someone else, it's about trusting yourself to be worth loving. The scars from her first marriage, which she once thought made her damaged, became proof of her resilience to Blake. Sometimes the evidence of our pain becomes the foundation for our healing, and our willingness to risk love again becomes our greatest victory.